Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to build another solar lantern. This will probably be the last one we make. We've made it several throughout all the videos. So anyway, this one here, I ran across these lights. I was looking for something different to put inside these, and I ran across these lights. These are from Amazon. They're not very big. They're only 2.2 inches around, so just a little over 2 inches. But the unique thing about these is that when they have an on-off switch, when you turn them on, they're multicolored. So, and they change automatically. So we're going to put those together. We're going to put 3 of these in this solar light. We're going to make this one very similar to like the one that we just did, where we put all the twinkle lights in it. We're going to use all clear glass in it. And then we're going to put 3 of these in the top, and we'll let them change the color of our solar lantern. So to do that, we need to figure out how big to make this again. So if you watch any of my other videos, you've seen that we're going to just draw it out on a piece of paper real quick to get the dimensions to find out how big it is. We're going to build this on a triangle again. So anyway, I thought these were fairly unique, and they'll give us a really interesting effect when they change in and out. They don't do it together, so as you can see, they're all different colors at different times. So we'll get a blending effect across our solar lantern. So it should be very interesting. So anyway, we'll turn these off right now and get them out of the way. So we just push those up out of the way. And so to determine how big to make this, we're going to take our T-square here. We're going to make our line across here. We're going to find the middle of it here again, like we've done before on the other ones. This is 8.5 by 11, so it's going to be 4.25 inches. We'll just draw an up line right here. And these are going to sit in here like this. About 1/8 of an inch off this baseline right here. There's going to be 3 of them here. And this one here is going to be up here in the top here, like this. Now, I'm going to just hold these, push these down tight. I just need to have this outside perimeter here of these. That one there kind of moved on me a little bit, so I want to be sure I get it right. Yeah. If something like that happens, be sure you recheck it, because if your dimensions across here are not correct and you make this too small, these won't fit in there. So we want to be sure we get it. See how that moved in here right here. So here's the line we're going to use right here. So we're going to take our T-square, put it back on here. This is a 60-degree triangle. It has an 1/8 inch lip right here on it. So I'm going to put this in here like this. I'm going to bring this right down against where the solar light ends. I'm going to pull it out here to the 1/8 inch mark right there. I'm going to make a down line here. Then I'm going to turn this over, put it right in here like this, up against the point right here. Bring it down. So this point right here is what we're looking for. This is really the only number we really want. It's right from here to right here. So we'll just draw a little quick line here. Then we're going to take our ruler and we'll measure this. This comes out to be 6 7/16. So I think what we'll do is we'll go on out to make it 6.5 rather than go to the 7/16. That'll make sure that's big enough for us. So 6 1/2 inches from point here to this point right here. So I'm going to go offline, and I'll draw us up just a little pattern to follow. And then we'll come back and we'll build us a form 6.5 inches wide, and we'll make this project. This one here, I think what we're going to do is we're going to build it a little bit like this. Build it out here like this. And we're going to run a piece of that iridescent white glass down here like this. Well, that's not going to work too good. We better get our header glass in here, right here. Then we're going to bring this up here like this. And maybe we'll put one in the middle here. I'm not sure if we'll do that yet or not. And then in here, we'll come in with our clear glass and we'll fill this all in. So we'll work on that when we get ready to go. This is another one of the cut and stack ideas. So we'll just make it as we go along and see how we like it. So this gives you an idea of kind of what we're going to do. And we're going to use all of that scrap glass we have that's clear. Some of it's ripple, some of it is glue chip, some of it's frosted. So it has lots of different textures to it. Some of it's iridescent, some of it's plain. So anyway, we'll come back and we'll draw this pattern up. So this will tell us exactly how big we're going to make it. Right here will be the point where we're looking at the 6.5 inches. And we'll probably flare this out to maybe 7.5 inches. So it won't be a big flare out, but it'll be kind of going out to the sides just to make it a little bit different. So we'll be back in a minute. We're going to do the header glass here again. We're going to do that in that black iridescent. I still have some of that left over. I like the way that looked, and with the white iridescent down here, the other one came out very nice. So we'll go back and do that also. So I'll go ahead and draw up another plan here built on this premises. And when I come back, we'll have it down on our Homosoit work table. And we'll go ahead and lay the form out, and we'll get ready to put this together. So we'll be back in a second. Okay, so we're back. We got our layout laid out here now, and I've got it taped down to my Homosoit board we're going to build on. So this is our plan. It's going to have the header glass is going to cross here. It's going to be 1.25 inches high. This will be where our solar lights will go. They'll go in here like this, and this is going to be opaque, so they'll be hidden from outside, so nobody will see these. And we flared this out here just about 1 inch. So at the end of it is 7.5. Down here at the start is going to be 6.5, and the length of it from here to here is going to be 6 inches. So anyway, we're going to build a form to go on here. So in order to build this, we need to start off with our header right here. And I'm going to take my carpenter square. This is the one we've used on all the projects. I'm going to lay it up against the back of my work table here, just like that. And I have some small wire brads. These are about 1/8 of an inch, an inch long. And they're going to take our first piece of form wood. This is our header. It's been cut on a little 45 right here, so that'll allow for our hanger to go in here. And so we're going to set that right in here. I'm going to bring that down so it just is approximately right here to the edge here. And then I'm just going to take and tack this down to my board. So I'm just going to stick this right in here. Hold it up against my square. Put about 3 of these across here. Now here again, these are the little forms that I made out of a piece of 3/4 inch pine. I just set my gate on my table saw at 1/4 inch and ripped these out. Like I talked about before, if you don't have a way to do that, pick up some wooden yardsticks. The ones at Home Depot would work great, and take and cut them to the length that you want, and you can create your own forms with those. So they're not very expensive, and they're nice and straight. They have a nice thickness to them. The paint stirring sticks are a little bit thin. They're only about 1/8 of an inch, so that's about the same thickness as the glass. So they're not quite as nice, but the paint stirring sticks would work. You just have to be careful that you don't let your lead get over on the top of them. Okay, up the sides now, we're going to kind of eyeball this in because we're going to follow our line right here. So I'm going to go right on the outside of the line right there. The line's been put in there with a felt tip pin, and it primarily gives me the about the thickness of the heart that's in the cane that we're going to use. So we're going to line it up here, and we're going to take and we'll tack it down. And we'll go down here to the end here, make sure it's where we want it. like I said in some of the other videos, be sure you put this where you want it to start with, because as we build the panels, if you don't have it quite right, your panels aren't going to fit together very well. So now our lead cane will come down here, go across here, and we're going to come up on this side here. So we'll bring this down here. And we'll go right there. This needs to come out just a little bit. All right, right there. Take and put this down here. And I want to hold this one out here. I'll put one more right here in the middle. All right, so that's all there is to building our form. We'll get rid of these little guys. We don't need those. So I'll go offline, and I'm going to cut us some U-came to go around the outside edges here, and we'll cut down some H-came to go across here. And when I come back, I'll show you how we're going to put them in here. Our hanger is going to be right here. Like I've done on all the other ones, we're going to make the hanger out of the 3/32 cotter pin. So I'll show you how to do that again. If this is the first time you've watched one of my videos, then you'll get an idea how we're doing this. If you've watched several of my videos, this is starting to get probably old hat for you, but I like to keep going over it in case you may be a tip that you might pick up that we've left out accidentally. So anyway, we'll be back when we get the lead cut up on this, and we'll go ahead and put it down here, and then we'll get ready. We'll cut our glass for here and here and here, and we're going to go ahead and cut our glass for the header. And then we'll be ready to put this together. As you see, I decided to go ahead and put that piece of 3/4 inch here down the middle here. So I just thought I would break that up a little bit to give us a little bit of a texture in this middle here. So we'll be back, and we'll get ready to put some lead in here, and we'll go on from there. All right, we're back. We got lots of little things here now. We've got all of our lead cut here. I put these down the sides here already, but I'm going to pull them out of here because I want to show you how we put the hanger in here. So we have a piece of U-came here cut on a 45, and we had some questions about the came I'm using, so I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown on it here. This particular one here is made by Cascade Metals. They make all kinds of different kind of cames. You can go online and check out their website, and it'll tell you all the dimensions of the came. This one here across the top here, the crown, which they call this area across the top, or the face, this is 1/4 inch across here. And then inside the channel here, the channel is 3/16 inch deep. And the number on this one is RU70. So it's considered a round came because of the round of the crown on it, so forth. So that's the U-came we're using. The H-came now, there's a couple different ones that I use. This particular one is called RU9, and it's 5/32 across the crown here on the top, and it has a 3/16 inch channel in here. And so that gives you a little bit more room than the standard H-came of this same size. So this one here is RH9. This is the one I'm using. Sometimes it's referred to as high heart came, and the heart is this piece that's in the middle here, right? This piece right here. They make another one that's very, very popular, and you find it probably the more standard one, and it's called RH8. The only difference between it still has the 5/32 across the crown, but the channel is only 5/32, so it's not quite as wide as the high heart, which is the RH9. So hopefully that kind of clears that up, because a lot of people were asking, well, what are we getting? You know, what size came are you using to make these projects? So I use this same cane for all my projects. I use it for large windows and for homes and things like that, and for these little projects like this. So that'll kind of give you a rundown on that. So you can check out the company online, and they've got a great chart you can go to. It'll show you all the numbers, all the names. It does come out when you first turn the chart on. It comes out in decimals. So there's a arrow that you can move down, and you can change it into fractions if you want to look at it in fractions. So anyway, let's get back to putting this together. So this is our hanger here. This is the one we're going to make. We're making this out of a 3/32 steel zinc plated cotter pin. And the way we do that, if you watched some of my other videos, you've seen how we do this already. And if you want, there's a video on my YouTube channel that deals just directly with how to make these right here. So what we're going to do, I'll show you how we're going to do it again. We'll make a couple more here. We're going to take the cotter pin, and in the loop here, we're going to use our long nose pliers, and we're going to insert it in the loop. And now we're going to take a piece of tubing here. This is 3/32 across the opening of the brass tubing. This tubing, you can buy this at hobby stores, Home Depot. A lot of people have this, Hobby Lobby. So you can find this in a lot of different places. And I just insert it on the leg here. And if this was straight, if this wasn't flared out here, if this was straight up and down, we would come out to a 90 degree just like this. But since it's flared out, we're going to go past 90 degrees a little bit, so that when we put this in here, this will come over and fit in here just like that. If you go at 90 degrees, what'll happen is this will start to stick out here, and it'll create a problem. So that's how we do that. So I'll do another one here real quick so you can see what we're doing. So put your long nose pliers in the loop, insert your tubing, pull it out and go past center just a little bit. And that's going to go right in here. That one's a little bit too far. Just bring it back out. There we go. Okay, so now this is going to go inside the U-came. So since we're going to put this piece of leg inside the U-came, you need to take your header glass. This is the header glass we're going to use. You notice right here, I've ground this down so that this sits in here like this. So that makes this surface here and the surface where my cotter pin is at the same height, so your cane doesn't start to make a dip in it. The only problem we have here, if you look right here, this is sticking down below the surface of the header. That will interfere with the next piece of glass we're going to put in there. So we're going to take a pair of long nose pliers. Most of them have a side cutter like this one. And on this down leg that's going here, just insert it where it comes out the end right here. It's about 1/4 inch. And just take and cut it off. And we'll do that to this one also. If you don't do this, your lead won't sit up against the H-came that we're going to put in here, and you'll wonder what's holding that back. So now you're going to have this effect right here. This will go on top here like this. If I can get it on here. All right, come on. Give me a break here. Here we go. Going to fit it right here like that. If you see it sticking out like that just a little bit, take your cotter pin and just pull it down just a little bit, because you want it to be sitting in here flat just like that. Okay. So now to put this in here, we're going to take our U-came, we're going to insert it right here. And then we're going to take our U-came that we've cut a notch in here. It's got a cut on a 45 and a 45. That inserts right here. And this comes down, and here's our hanger right here. So that'll stay right where we want it. Take a couple of your pins and pin it. As I said in the opening statement, we're building this on our Homasoit board, so we can use these metal push pins. They have an aluminum top on them and a steel pin. They're 5/8 of an inch long, so they work quite well. So now we're going to take our piece of header glass here, and we're going to insert it in here like this. Push it right up against our mark right here. We're going to take a small piece of H-came here again. It's going to go right in here. And we're going to take another piece of our header glass right here. And we're going to set it in here and bring it in here just like that. Now remember, these are cut on a little bit of an angle here because of this is starting to flare out. So now across here, we're going to put our piece of H-came. So this is the one right here. This makes the letter H. Going to set it right in here. And then we can just take our pins here. We can pin this for where we want it here. That'll hold it in here for us. Then we're going to take our first pieces of down glass here. This is the one right here. You notice it's been cut on an angle right here, so it flares out. Put this in here. Put that right there. And we're going to take a piece of our H-came here. I'm sorry, yeah, our H-came right here. And now here, I've left these long intentionally because we need to, I didn't know exactly where this is going to end until I put this piece of down glass in here. So now I'm going to take an old piece of U-came here, and I'm going to take it, I'm going to set it in here like this. And now I'm going to mark this right here. So that when I cut this, when we put our piece of U-came across the back of this, this will slide over it. See, that's not quite enough there. It needs to be just a little bit shorter. So when this is all the way down, this should slide across here. So it makes a nice tight joint right here. So we'll put that right there. Put a couple pins in here to hold that. Going to take our other side over here and we'll put it in here. And we'll take another piece of down lead. Just like that. And we can do the same thing here. Just put it in here. We can mark it. Just like that. And now I'm going to do something just a little bit different here. I'm going to cut this. Make sure it slides across here. And now I'm going to take all my other pieces. I won't do it in front of everybody, but I'm just going to line this up with each other, right, tail to tail. And I'm going to take and I'm going to cut all of these. So now, because I know what size they are, so that just kind of speeds things up as you're putting this together like an assembly line. So that'll go right there. We'll take and pin it here, and we'll pin it here. This one down in the middle here now, we're going to put it in here, but we're not going to make it completely straight yet. I'll show you what we're going to do. We need to trim another one of these up, so we need one more here. So I'm going to take our down piece right here, and I'm going to insert it in here. This came out a little bit smaller than 3/4 because, to be honest with you, I ran out of glass because I forgot to account for the fact that this was going crooked here with my glass. So I'm going to put this in here where it's straight. I'm going to put a little piece of my U-came up against here so I don't chip my glass. And I'm going to push that in just like that. And now I'm going to take these, although that's not the one I want. Here's what I want, these two here. Get the right ones. Put that one in there. Put it down, put it down. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my T-square. This is the one we used to draw the whole program up with. Move this over here. And I'm going to put it in here right like this. And I can bring this right up to my glass here to make sure this is going up and down. Right there is where we want it. So we'll put a couple more pins in here to hold that. Then we'll take this one here and it comes down here like that. And it's just going to be a basic straight cut. It's going to stagger these all in here. And then when we get back, we'll go ahead, put the bottom on with the U-came on the bottom. And then we'll go ahead and solder it up and we'll have one of our panels done. So we'll be back in a minute after we get that done. And we'll go ahead and start to make progress on the project. Okay, well, we're back here. We got it all filled in now with our clear glass here. So the last thing we have to do, we have to put a piece of U-came across the back here. So I've already cut one here. And you notice it's cut a little bit on an angle. This is because these are flaring out here. You'll also notice on our board here, I've added a straight edge along here. That's so that I can use my T-square when I'm putting this together to make sure these are all going straight. As we come along here, we want them to be nice and straight. So anyway, this is just going to go in here like this. Slips in here, comes down. Have a little piece of my form wood that I'm going to bring in here like this. Going to take my hammer, just very lightly give it a couple little taps. I'm going to bring my T-square up here. And I'm going to go over here and check it to make sure that it's square, which it is. And then I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to pin this back here. So we want to make these all exactly the same. We want to make them all exactly the square. So when they go together on our angle, they'll fit nicely. So most of you have watched some of my other videos. So you'll see how we solder this up. We'll do this one more time. We'll solder this one here. I'll solder the front side here real quick. And then I'll turn it over and solder it off camera. Then we'll come back and we'll finish up the ends here. We'll solder here and then we'll solder around our hanger right here. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to take a stainless steel brush here. And I'm just going to take and shine up any little areas where these joints come together. Just to knock off any oxidation that may have caused from them sitting in the open air. Or something that's been on my fingers as far as oil or so forth goes. So it just helps the solder flow a little bit better. Just get all of them shined up a little bit. Get all your joints brushed down. Just like that. I'm using a liquid flux here. This one here's kind of got a little more like a liquid paste, but it's because it's cold and it's starting to gel over a little bit. So we're just going to put our flux right on our joints. And we can flux this whole thing up all at one time because it's not a big project. Normally, if you're doing a great big project, you may want to just do an area at a time. But since these are real small, we can do the whole thing. If you miss a joint, when you go to solder it, you'll notice that the solder won't flow very smoothly. And all you have to do is go back, add a little bit of flux to it, and you'll go from there. In some of my other videos, you'll notice I take on the roll of solder, and I usually just take and cut off about a 10 to 12 inch piece. This roll of solder is just about to be done, so I'm going to go ahead and just hold it by the roll. We're using our Waller 100 watt iron. This is the one we've used for all of the other projects that we've used. It's got a sponge on my iron holder that I can dampen and make sure that the tip is clean. The solder I'm using is a 60-40, and so I like that when it flows nice and easy. And to get started, I'm just going to take and tin my iron just a little bit, just like that. And then I'm going to start anywhere along here. Say, for instance, I want to start right here. I'm going to take off about a 1/16 of an inch right off the end here. Just like that. And then move away from it. You don't want to go moving around and around on it or do anything like that. Just go straight down on it and move it away. And as we move along here, we can go anywhere we want to go. So we just keep walking along here. After you do this for a little while, you get a feeling for how much you want to take off solder-wise. The more solder you take off, the bigger the bead gets. So if you want to keep a real small bead, don't take a whole bunch off the solder. Like I say, about a 1/16 of an inch off the end here works good. And I try to make them all about the same size if I can. Sometimes they get away from you a little bit, but that doesn't ruin the look of your project. And soldering is a technique that after you do it for a while, you will get a technique that you're happy with, it works for you, And then it's just basically just practice, practice. If you have one like this where it wants to draw down in there a little bit, just add just a little bit more solder to it right here. And you can bring it back up. The reason I like this particular soldering iron is that the tip regulates the temperature. This has a number 7 tip in it, which is 700 degrees. And that seems to be just about right for this 6040 solder. So that works out nice. If you have one that goes off like that, you can just heat it up and just add it to it. Here's one that kind of dipped down here. Just add just a little bit more to it. The closer you make your joints, the less problems you'll have soldering it because you don't have big gaps. So it makes it real easy to solder. If you've got gaps, anything that's 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch between your joints, that becomes a little bit of a problem because it makes it harder to solder. After I get that soldered like that, I'm just going to take a towel here and kind of wipe off my area around here. And then we can move the soldering iron out of the way. We'll take out our pens here and we can take a look at our project. So this is what it's going to look like here. It's going to be real pretty. This is the one we're going to put the 3 colored solar lights in the top. These colored lights change colors automatically and they'll be at random. So sometimes this will be green and blue together, sometimes it'll be red and yellow together. So it'll be interesting to see how this one comes out. On the back side now, I'm going to go offline and solder that. But I do want to tell you one thing that you don't want to do. And don't solder anything down these outside edges. Don't solder here and here. We can solder right here, but not down at this joint right here. Because when these go together, they're going to go in a jig like this. And you'll create a V. If you solder down here, that'll push this away and you'll get a gap in your corner right here. So we don't want to do that. So I'll go offline. I'm going to solder all this up on this side. Then we'll come back and we're going to show you how we're going to finish these ends off here. Several things you could do. One, you could just cut them off and leave them open. You could try to fill that bigger gap with solder. We're going to cut these to a point and bend them over in here so we don't have so much of an area to cover. So I'll be right back when I get that taken care of, and we'll go from there. Okay, well, I'm back. I got the backside soldered up now. As I said before, see, we didn't solder down any of these right here. And right across here, I've left this open here because we're going to put what they call a cleat. A cleat is like a little shelf, and that'll hold our solar lights in. Down at the bottom here, we're going to put a little tab here because we're going to put a bottom in this unit. The cleat, we're just going to use a piece of H-came. It's going to solder in right here. I'll show you how we're going to do that real quick. And on the bottom, we're going to use one of these little tabs. This is made out of a real thin tin from it's a galvanized sheet that you get back where they have all the venting and sheet metal for ducking and so forth at the hardware store. It's galvanized. I just take and cut a little strip out of it. I take and burnish the galvanized off so it helps solder it a little bit easier. And that'll go here on the back here. And this will create a shelf for us to put a bottom in this unit. So to get started with, just going to turn this over and I'm going to move it over to the side here. And I'm going to use a pair of medical clamps. You could use long nose pliers. You could use an alligator clip, anything you have that you can hold this up straight with. And we're going to set this in here, right here. Get up here and make sure it's going to be in the camera here. We'll set that in there right like that. This can be just put in here at random. You don't have to measure or anything. The reason I didn't solder right here because the solder joints will make this lift up off of the came and it makes it more difficult to get a nice solder joint on it. So I'm going to push this in here like this. I'm going to take these clamps, push it down, and the clamp holds it like that. Then I'm going to take my flux. I'm going to run the flux along here. I'm going to run it along here. I'm just going to take and hold this right here like that. And I'm going to take my soldering iron. And if you look at the tip of it, I'll bring it up here. It has a little bit of a solder on it, a little bubble of it. And I'm going to just set this in here like this, hold this up, and I'm going to just take that soldering iron, I'm going to put it right here and let that come off of there, which will solder these two pieces of H-came together on their edge. After it's done, then I'm going to take my soldering iron and I'm going to add solder to it, and I'm just going to solder this all shut. You could spot solder this if you wanted to. I just like to usually just solder it shut all the way along. Okay. Here, if you want to come in here and just put a little bit of solder here to this upright, you can do that like that. We can take and turn this around. Do the same thing back here. Put a little solder on your iron. Just set it in here. Let it flow off. Just solder that. Like that. And like that. So now we've got our cleat on here, so you can take a look at it. That's how it goes on here. These edges are kind of sharp, so I usually take my lead dikes and I'm going to cut them on a little 45, just at random. Okay, so down here at the ends here now, we want to close those off. So what I'm going to do, about 1/4 of an inch from the bottom, I'm going to come up and I'm going to cut this into a point. What I'm going to do with this point, so now it has a point on it. I'm going to bend this point over into this closed area right here, or in this, actually it's an open area that I'm going to close up. I'm going to do it on the side of my workbench. So now you see that I've closed that up. So instead of having that big square to solder, I just have a little bit to do. So it won't take near as much solder. It'll be much easier to do. This side over here is just about the right height already. So we're going to cut it in on the side here. This just finishes up your job, makes it a little bit nicer. If you wanted to, you could just cut those off flat and just leave them open. I prefer to go ahead and close it up. Push them down flat. So now you can see how they look here. They've got this closed up now. I just have this little area to go. If you have your cane sticking out a little bit like that, just take a block of wood here and push that back in flat so it doesn't stick out. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to bring in a drill vise. You could use a couple of pieces of wood, anything you've got that helps hold this up straight. I'm going to set this in here like this. I'm going to tighten this up on here really light because I don't want to break my glass. I'm going to move this up in here just a little bit more, so we'll straighten this up so everybody can see what we're going to do. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to take it, I'm going to put a little flux right here in the corners on both sides. Clean off the tip on my soldering iron. I'm just going to take and close this up right here. Just like that. Come over here and do the same thing over here. Now you can leave those like that if you wanted to. They don't look bad. I'm going to put it on some 80 grit sandpaper. I'm going to sand them down and we'll finish the edges off with just a little bit of a chamfer or rounded edges. Over here, you can see we've got a little gap here where these 45 came together. So I'm going to move this over a little bit. I'm going to set this in here like this. Here again, tighten it up with my vise, but not too tight. And while I'm fluxing this, I'm going to flux here, and I'm going to come down here, go around the cotter pin. And right here, I'm just going to add just a little bit of solder to this right here. Just like that. And here where the hanger's at, we'll take and push this out here a little bit and move this over here. Get it where we can see what we're doing. Right here, to go around our hanger, I'm just going to take and I'm going to tin my iron, and I'm just going to set this right in here like this, and I'm just going to wait for it to flow off. There it goes right there. And that sucks down around that cotter pin, so now that hanger can't get out of there. Plus, we have the leg running back underneath here. So I'm going to turn this around on this side. Bring it back over here a little bit. And I'm just going to go ahead and let it flow right around the edge here. Right like that. And that closes that all off. So I'm going to go offline real quick. I'm going to sand these down flat. Clean these edges up a little bit here with an emery board. And we'll have one panel done. So it's going to come out really nice for us. So I'm real happy with the way it looks. And when I come back after I get the edges done, we'll go ahead and put that little plate on the bottom here to hold this. So I'll be right back. Okay, so we're back here. So we finished up the edges here. Now you can see that I've chamfered them down. I use an emery board. This is 100 by 180 grit, and it just helps. It just works like a file. You can just take and smooth the edges up a little bit. These little scratches you see on the cane, give it 3 or 4 weeks, and those will all disappear. They'll turn, they'll oxidize kind of a gray color, so you won't disturb your product at all. And up around our hanger here, you can see we've got it all nice and closed off here. Here's a little bit sticking up right here. We'll just take and knock that off just a little bit. There we go. So just kind of cleaning up anything that's hanging over. We want this to look nice and straight. Okay, here's this right here. If you have any little bubbles like this one right here, just take your dikes, set it in here, and you can pop those right off if you have any little bubbles in there. Okay, so this may be a little bit hard to see because it's going to probably go off the camera, but down here on the inside here, here's where our cleat's at. I'm going to take our little plate right here, and I'm going to insert it right here. But before I solder it, I'm going to take my pin, and I'm going to draw a line right across here. Because remember, our cane is rounded. If you don't do this, if you solder it down flat just like that, this little sharp edge will stick below where the crown is right here, and it gets quite sharp, so we don't want to do that. So we're going to raise this up right about 1/8 of an inch above our cane. I'm going to take my piece of form wood at the top here and a couple push pins. I'm going to push this down tight. Take my flux again, come in here against my tab that's going to hold the bottom in. Take my iron, tin it, just like this. Set it right in here, and then I'm going to just give it a pretty good little dose of solder, and I'm going to move it right along here. Let it take and solder that directly onto there. So we got one panel done. I'll go offline and make 2 more like this. And then when we come back on, we're going to go ahead and we'll put them together. We'll put them in our 60-degree jig that makes them go onto a triangle. And we'll put them together, and then we'll be pretty much done with the project. So we'll be back in a minute with the other 2 panels made, and we'll go from there. All right, well, we're back. We've got all 3 panels made up now. So we're going to use this little jig right here. This is on a 60-degree angle, the cut right here. So that'll line up. We have a couple little backstops that I put on here, so we'll run the edges up to it. So the way this works is you take your panel, you insert one of them here, and then take one of your other panels and you set it right in here. And then you want to line up this area right in here, this V area here. And you want to make sure that's down tight. You want to make sure that the leading edges of your project are up against these stops right here. And after you get that lined up where you want it, just take your flux, run it down the V slot right here. And I'm just going to take tack solder at both ends, and I'm going to turn it over and put these little clips on it. I showed you these before in the other videos. They're made out of paper, the paper clips that you buy at the stationery store. And these little edges here are normally rolled over like these edges. I just took and rolled them back over, and so now they have like little fingers on them. And they go in between the cane and the glass, and they'll pull this edge together so that you don't have any gaps in it. So we'll just take our soldering iron, and we'll just take and tin it right here. And we're just going to set it right in here like that. And we're just going to solder that real light. Take it down here. Solder just like that. Then I can just take this out and I can turn it over like this. And I'll take these like this. Here again, like I said, these little fingers will slide in between the glass and the cane and pull that tight so we don't have any gaps in it. If you don't want to make these little clips, you don't have to. This lined up nice and straight. That's one reason why we make the jig, to line them up with to start with. You can just solder it without doing this. This ensures me that they're going to be up tight, and I don't have to worry about having any air gaps in them. Because if you have air gaps in them, what happens is when you light this up at night, light will show through, and it doesn't look quite as nice if they have light coming through on the edges. Okay, so we got our clips in there. So now I'm just going to come back in here, and I'm going to take and solder this in 4 or 5 spots here. Down here at the end here, I'm going to take and solder this all the way shut here. And what I mean by that is I'm going to just fill this up solid with solder, because that's the area that's open to the, you can look in there, and I like to have that filled up with solder. Kind of like that. We'll do one more little one right here. Just like that. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. You can leave that open. So now when we turn this over, we can take and we'll pull our clips off here. You'll see that this edge now, right here, has no solder coming through it, okay? So that's what we want. This little bit of solder, it rolled over when I did the inside there. We can take and we can remove that or just leave it. It won't hurt anything. So the next step now is to set this in our jig again, like this. Make sure it's up against our backstop right here. And we'll take our last panel and we'll insert it down in here. And make sure it's up against, make sure they're both up against the stops on our head of our jig so that they line up. And then we want to line up the V's inside here. We can go around and we look, this one here is not quite right here. We want to get it right in the middle there. Take your time to get this lined up as good as possible so that you get the nice edge on it. Make sure you got it up against the head stops here. Once you got it where you want it, here again, we're just going to take and spot solder this on both sides. Here again, I'm going to just take my iron and I'm going to tin it and just put it in here real quick for a spot solder. Then I'm going to turn this around. Make sure this is where I want it right here. I want it right there. We'll give this a little spot solder. Okay. Now we'll pull this off and we'll do the same thing here. We'll take and we'll put our clips on here, pull these together. So this just makes sure that it pulls up tight. Now what I'm going to do, I'll just flip these down real quick. Set this in here. Now I'll come back in. I'll flux the whole inside here, all the way down, all the way back to the end. Now I'll take my solder and I'm going to pull off a little bit, oh, maybe 12 inches or so, and I'm going to reach inside. So I'm coming down inside the back side of this so I can get my solder here. Let's take and we'll prop this up a little bit so you can see what we're doing here. I'm going to take this right here. I'll put it up on an angle right here so you can see. Maybe you can see it. It's not going to help very much. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll solder this one up. Coming down side, put my soldering iron right in here. I'm going to put about 3 spot solders on here, maybe 4. I'm going to come all the way down inside here. Okay, and I'm going to come back and we're going to close this one up also. Here again, I'm just going to solder it solid. There we go. Okay, so now we can pull that out. Move our jig out of the way here. Pull our little clips off. Here again, we have a nice clean solder joint here. We don't have anybody bleeding through, so that's what we want. So the next one I'm going to do, it will be this last one. So we're going to set this in here like this. Bring our jig back over. We'll set this down in here like this. And we'll line up these last 2 panels where we want them, right there. So they're lined up where we want them. On the back side, they'll look good. Here again, this is why we build these with a form, so they're all exactly the same. And now before I solder this one, I'm going to have my lovely wife come out, and we're going to take the camera down, and we're going to film this one down inside here so you can see exactly what we're doing inside here. So we'll be back in a second. I'll get her to come out and help me film this. So we'll be right back. All right, well, we're back. I got my lovely wife to come out and shoot this for us so we can see inside here. I put this up on a little block here. So this is the area we're going to solder right down through here. And here again, we're just going to spot solder it. So we'll put a little flux here. And I'll go down inside here and put a little flux down here. And I'm just going to reach right here. Make sure it's up against your stops right here. Make sure it's down where you want it. Take your iron and just and tin your iron just a little bit. Gonna set it right in here. Take and solder that. Then I'm going to take it here. Going to go down inside here. May have to get my soldering iron over here and get a little bit on here. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to take that out. Just like that. Put it up on the edge, and we're going to put our clips on it here again. So that'll pinch those 2 sides together real tight so that we don't have any bleed through. Okay, now we'll take this and we'll set it back in here. I'll set it up so you guys can see what we're doing here. Now I'm going to take my solder. First I'm going to flux all the way down inside here. I'm going to take my solder, pull out about 12-15 inches, and I'm going to come down inside here with my solder, and I'm going to take and spot weld this, or spot solder this back up here. Now I'm going to reach all the way down to the bottom here and put one more right down here in the bottom. Like that. We'll come back up here like we did on all the other ones, and we'll fill this in solid. Just exactly like that. Okay. So now we'll pull our project out, set up on edge. We'll take our clips off. This is the area we soldered right here. We got it nice and clean. We don't have any bleed through. It's exactly what we want. So you can see all the edges came out nice by putting the clips on here. So this is the one we're going to put the 3 multicolored solar lights in the top of it. So that's why we made it all clear. So I'll go offline. I'm going to make a sheet metal plate to go in the top here. I'll drill 3 holes in it for the lights. And we're going to put a bottom in it. They'll sit on these tabs right here. So when I come back, we'll have a bottom and a top made for it. And I'll show you how we're going to put those in. And then we'll go ahead and put a chain on it, and we'll light it up and show you how the project came out. So I'm real happy with it. And I want to thank my wife for coming out and helping us do this. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right, well, we're back. Well, we got the unit all cleaned up now. I usually just put it in a bucket of water with some Dawn soap. And then after it's done with the Dawn soap, and I brush it all down inside and out, I use some isopropyl alcohol. I spray the whole thing, and then I wipe it down with a terry cloth. It gives the glass a nice shine. I've also seen people use vinegar and water, white vinegar with water. That works really well. We're going to move away a little bit from here. We've cut the bottom for the project. This is it right here, just a piece of opaque white glass. I marked where our tabs are on the bottom. We'll put some E6000 silicone seal on there and glue those to the tab. But I've had some comments about how are we making the top for this. And in some of the real earlier videos where we're using a mat that we use for that the quilters use to cut their fabric on, and some people were saying that, well, they couldn't locate a mat, or they couldn't find something like that. So the material that we use to make the little tabs to hold the bottom in, this material right here, this is a galvanized tin. This is the one you can purchase at a hardware store, and it's quite thin. It's probably a little over a 32nd of an inch thick, and it comes in a sheet, looks like this. So it's just a regular piece of galvanized tin. I use just a pair of tin snips. I use my 60-degree triangle to draw out the area in here, and I usually leave about an 1/8 of an inch gap all the way around, so if it rains, the water can go through it. And then I use a metal hole saw. This has 1 inch across, has a pilot drill right here, and this goes in your drill press. I've never tried it in an electric handheld drill, but I want to give you a warning. If you're going to use this, whenever you do that, be sure to take your plate here, like this plate right here, and clip it down. I'm using vice grips here to hold it down against my board that I'm going to use to drill the holes through. Because if this ever catches and starts to spin around, it could be really dangerous as far as getting cut by it. So be sure you clamp it down and hold it tight when you do this if you're going to try this type of thing. You don't need quite this big a hole, but I always like to have a big enough hole so if the solar lights move around a little bit, they're always letting the light go through the bottom of it. What I'll do with this is I'll take and spray paint this with a little bit of black satin finish paint. And I'm not going to glue it into here on the tabs, because that way I can take it out and I can go inside and clean this as it hangs for a while. Because after they hang outside for a while, sometimes you get some spider webs in them, or you get some leaves or some dirt in them. And it's always nice to be able to get inside and clean them. So anyway, I just wanted to explain to that, and be sure to give you the warning about clamp it down tight so that you don't have an issue with it starting to fly around on your drill press. And these edges are quite sharp. You could get cut on it. So just a little warning there to be sure to be careful with it. So we'll go ahead and stick the bottom in it right now, and then I'll go offline. I'll spray paint this real quick, and then we'll come back in. We'll put it in. We'll put the lights in and put the chain on it, and then we're going to light it up. So then we'll be all done with the project. So we'll be back in just a minute. I'll come back on real quick here and show you this. So when you use the hole saw, sometimes on the back side you'll get some little burrs on it here. And so take your emery board and knock those off, because they're quite sharp. So here's one right here. So you want to be sure that you don't have any little burrs sticking out there that you can get cut on. So You have to be a little bit careful when you're doing this. Unlike the cutting mat, which is made of a plastic rubbery material, this is a little more difficult. So if you have access to one of the cutting mats, go ahead and use that. It's much easier than this, but this makes a much more substantial bottom for it. So I'll go offline and just give this a little coat of paint, and then when we come back on, we'll go ahead and stick it in there along with the bottom. And like I said before, we'll put a chain on it and we'll be done with it. So we'll be back in a second. Okay, well, we're back. So I've got the bottom all made here, and we've marked where we're going to put it onto our tabs. I also put a little X right here. So on the bottom of my project, I have a little X marked here. So I know that that's where I want to put this down. So to put this on, we're just going to take our plate here. We're going to take our silicone seal or any kind of a glue that you have, and we're going to put a little bead right across here, just like that. And after we get our glue on there, we're going to take and we're going to insert this inside here. And then I'm going to reach around on the other side, and I'm going to take and lift this up and let it fall right into place, just like that. Now I can take and move it around a little bit. I'm going to use some of our little form wood here to keep it up off of the tabs so that it doesn't glue down to my work table. So I can take that and I can take and move this around in here if I want to position it where I want it. That looks pretty good right there. We'll just leave it right there. So on the top part here, now here's our top part now that I took and I sprayed it with some black satin paint. You can choose to do that or not. It doesn't make any difference. It just kind of finishes the product off a little bit, makes it a little bit nicer, especially if you're going to try to sell these. You want it to look as professional as possible. If you're just making these for yourself and you don't have either the cutting mat for the quilters or you don't have any sheet metal to make a top like this, if you have an old CD laying around, this is the CD blank. When I first started making these, this is what I use for the tops of them. And you just cut one on an angle, and if your design's not too big, and say you just want to use a single source in the middle here, it's already got a hole for you, and you can just cut that and drop it in the top here, just like that, and that creates a nice effect. All right, so we got our project all done. Here's what it looks like, and so I'm real happy with it. I'm going to turn out the lights here and we'll show you what it looks like with the multicolored solar lights in it. Remember, these solar lights turn multicolors by themselves. So sometimes we're going to have some that will be half green, half blue, half red. And for some reason, the blue colors and the red colors seem to be not the red colors, the blue colors and the green colors seem to be the brightest. But anyway, this will give you an idea what this is going to look like when it's lit up at night. So we'll be back and we'll turn the light on and we'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so here's what it's going to look like at night. And so you can see, I'm going to let it try to run through all the colors here. So it has a whole bunch of different colors to it. And here coming to red. We'll just let it sit here quietly and we'll let it go through the color so you can kind of get a view of what they're going to look like. I think it came out really nice. I'm really happy with it. There's the would appear white one. Now it's going to go into the green hues here. It likes the blues quite a bit. But anyway, it's been a fun project. I hope you guys like it. And if you have any comments, send me a comment and I'll reply to you. Hope you'll look at the rest of my videos. You can look at all of them on Bill Stone's Stained Glass Creations. And we'll see you when we get ready to do the next video. So I hope you've enjoyed this one and give it a try and try some of the tips that I've given you. And thanks for watching my videos, and please subscribe if you'd like to watch more of them.